Welcome to the Gooder Podcast, where we talk with powerhouse women in CPG about their journeys to success. This episode is sponsored by Retail Voodoo, a brand development firm guiding mission-driven consumer brands to attract new and passionate consumer base, crush their categories through growth and innovation, and magnify their social and environmental impact. If your brand is in need of brand positioning, package design, or marketing activation, we are here to help. You can find more information at www.retail-voodoo.com.
Well, hello, Diana Frike here. I am the host of the Gooder Podcast, where I get to talk with the powerhouse women in the food, beverage, and wellness categories about their journeys to success and their insights on the industry. Thanks for joining us today.
Really Thanks for having me, Diana.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Quickly, before we get into our episode, Retail Voodoo is the sponsor of this episode. Retail Voodoo is a brand development firm. Our clients include Starbucks, Kind, REI, PepsiCo, Heike, and many other market leaders. We provide strategic brand and design services for leading brands in the food, wellness, beverage, and fitness industry. If your goal is to increase market share, drive growth, or disrupt the marketplace with new and innovative ideas, give us a call and let's talk. You can find out more on retail-voodoo.com. Now, before officially introducing today's guest, I want to give a big thank you to Jeremy Wise for introducing me to my guest today. Rise 25 specializes in helping B2B businesses reach their dream 100 clients and partners using products or podcasts, I should say, like mine. To learn more about them and how to use their podcast for your business, check out rise25.com. Well, today's guest is Suzie Yorke, who is founder and board member of Love Good Fats. Suzie is a triathlete, 11-time Ironman finisher, a yogi, a marketing executive, and a proud supporter of the LGBT community, which she is a proud member of. Love Good Fats was born out of the pursuit to empower others to embrace a totally new way of eating. Now, Suzie spent years cutting fat out of her diet only to find that she felt worse than before. After a little research, she learned that sugar and carbs might actually be the culprit. She immediately shifted to a high-fat, low-carb diet and never felt better. And she's on a fierce mission to spread the word that fat is back and sugar is out. Well, hello, Suzie. How are you?
Well, I'm great. Thank you for that really nice introduction.
Of course. Now, where are you calling today, or where are we recording from today?
Well, today I'm in Montreal at a little Airbnb for a few weeks, and I have my one of my doggies is on my lap because my other doggie is a bit restless. I have 3 little rescues and 2 of them with me, so I'm just managing through here and have some company to make sure they don't bark. It's been a crazy morning with a huge snowstorm, so there's been a lot of stuff going on, and the snow, the porch, the concierge. Everything. So they're a little bit on edge this morning.
Oh my goodness. I love Montreal. I've only been once. Beautiful city. Absolutely gorgeous city. Yes. Quickly, I wanted to congratulate you on, I read that Love Good Fats surpassed 100 million in revenue. Was that just in the last few months?
No, we that was 2 years ago. So we launched, we launched 5 years ago in September 2017, and within just over three years, just over 36 months, we exceeded 100 million cumulative sales, which is smashing a lot or most of the food startup records in Canada for sure. And then we've been, kept growing since. COVID certainly slowed the brand down because we're a portable on-the-go bars. Yep. And people have not been on the go for the last 2 years. They've been baking banana bread and eating, homemade comfort food. So the on-the-go new category really took a hit. Mm-hmm. However, the brand had a pretty fast start and a really loyal consumer base, especially in Canada. So we had to, the big P word, we had to do many pivots and realign our strategies, but certainly very proud of the last 5 years.
Yes. Well, I will say 100 million in 3 years, passing 100 million in 3 years is almost unbelievable. It really is. So that is an astonishing feat in and of itself. Now, I was introduced to Love Good Fats, always been on my periphery, and also heard about you through another friend of mine, Andrea Houston, who has a podcast, Lead Like a Woman. And both Jeremy and Andrea spoke so highly of you when they introduced me to you. Maybe tell us a little bit about Love Good Fats. Can you tell us, why does it exist?
Well, as per your beautiful intro, I've been a brand builder for 20 years. I graduated McGill in engineering, but I went straight into marketing at Procter & Gamble. And then I followed my boss at Frito-Lay, and then I went to Heinz, because the Heinz ketchup, the strongest brand in Canada at that point, had been declining for 10 years.
Oh my goodness.
And they needed a brand builder. So I went there, and I was there for 4 years and put all the building blocks in place to profitably grow the brand again. And I did the same with Weight Watchers right after. So I kind of had a background of either launching brands. I launched Tostitos into Canada, or repositioning brands to fix, what was inhibiting growth. And at the same time, I was, kind of restless. I started running, biking. I met a community of triathletes in Toronto, and that became my life in my 20s. Just, starting to do short course races, and then longer and longer, and Boston Marathon, all these Ironmans. And then I had my, and so back then in the 90s, that was the enemy. So we would be training, and, we would be eating pasta with tomato sauce, like never touch butter, never touch hamburger meat, never touch, anything, eggs, because egg yolks were full of fat.
Yes.
Salmon was full of fat. All the stuff that I ingest now was off the table. And, I was trying always to lose 10 pounds. I'm 10, 15 pounds leaner now than I was then, because I was doing these races, and I kind of was carrying a little bit, and I was following a little bit more than I wanted, and I was following a low-fat diet. And then, after 20 years of, became director at a young age, and then I became VP at a young age. And I'm juggling, I was single mom in my 40s, and I'm juggling, my 2 kids and the carpool and the 3 lunches and breakfasts, and also training for Ironman, and, very demanding jobs and travel. And my mid 40s, my body just totally told me this is not working, even though I'm always getting up at 4:44 in the morning and have this whole routine. It just, my blood pressure kept going up and up. And I was like, okay, my doctor's like, you can't eat any better than you're eating. I was eating low fat. And my IBS I'd have flare-ups. And when I'd have flare-ups, when your GI is a mess, I'd just be laying down in the middle of the day, and not great. And then I read Nina Teicholz's book, The Big Fat Surprise. And it said, whoa, one study, Ansel Keys in the 60s, flawed methodology, a diary, post-war diary study that's now been disproved with first the Harvard meta studies, etc. One study created 40 years of misinformation, 600,000 low-fat SKUs, a whole world of me believing that fats are bad and looking for the little green, fat-free logo and everything. So once I read that book, first I tracked down Nina on Twitter, and now we're friends. And I've met her multiple times, and she's an incredible woman. And then I immersed myself in the science. I've gone to, I think, 12 of the low-carb scientific and medical conferences in North America. And I realized about the science and how it was flawed. So I was like, okay, I'm a marketer. We don't need another book, because all the big names wrote books. Don't need a marketer writing a book. I said, what can I do? I can launch a brand, because I saw how the protein movement with Chobani coming into the US really accelerated. Protein, gluten-free brands were accelerated. Atkins, low carb. A brand can do magic to kind of accelerate awareness of a new trend. And I said, someone's going to read the book or is going to look at, the cover of Time magazine and Fortune, like fats were back everywhere. Cheese and meat and full fat, eggs, and were on cover of magazines everywhere in 2017. So I said, someone else is going to look at all this and say, whoa, let's launch a brand with the word fats and tell the world that fats are here and they're good. So I was just like, okay, this is what I'm going to do and see if I can do it first. I was on the plane to Natural Product Expo. And if you're in the food startup, that's kind of where new brands start and where marketers live. And I walked the show. And there was no other fats brand yet. So I was really excited. But there was a lot of fats, 2017, you had, meat was coming back, full fat cream was coming back.
Yes.
Butters were everywhere. So I knew, like it's coming. And then, I went back to the hotel and Googled USPTO for brand names. And I was like, darn it, I'm 50 and I'm going to launch a brand with the name Fats. So good fats. I mean, healthy fats would have been the best name, but, FDA wouldn't have liked that too much. So I settled on good fats and then I played around the Good Fat Company. I launched Suzie's Good Fats and 3 years. Anyone who wants advice on trademarks, call me. I learned a lot on Canada and US trademark challenges.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
So that's how it started. And then I just literally had a PowerPoint on the plane back. I had, buckets of names that I knew. And then I just wrote the brand positioning, which is what I've been doing for 30 years, but now is for my own brand. So now I had like a mini pitch deck. And this was before, now there's all these incubators, there's Clubhouse, there's, pitching 101. There's a lot of help now for a startup, but this was kind of before that. But I just did, I've launched brands before, just not with my own money. So I just did what I knew how to do. And I went to former bosses and colleagues and said, hey, I have an idea. I'm doing consulting here to build brands, but by the way, I have an idea here. And I had, everyone wanted to meet me. No one wanted to talk about my consulting. Everyone wanted to talk about, tell me your brand idea. Yeah. And I didn't know if I really believed in it or myself. Like, I don't think that at first, the first 20 and then 40, I've done 100 pitches. I don't know if I really believed that I would actually, at age 50, take my life savings as a single mom with a mortgage in Toronto with 2 kids needing to go to university.
Yeah.
I don't know if I really believed in myself deep down, but what happens is like I pitched to like 40 different people. A couple of them said, I'll be on the board. About 8 of them said, we'll angel invest in you.
Yes.
Just, get samples, work on your packaging. Cause I was doing concept testing, but that's kind of how it happens. Right.
Wow.
Like even if deep inside I was like, oh, I don't know, like I'm, 25 years with a salary. It just all came together really, really well because the idea was so strong. The timing was perfect.
Yeah.
The bars were delicious. So then once I started getting samples of the bars, like, oh my God, I'd be starting the pitch.
Yes.
And then the person across the table would be listening. Yeah. Okay. Like flipping through the deck and then they'd take a bite. And then the whole meeting would change. They're like, oh my God.
Yes.
Because back then, there's no like protein bars are protein bars, right? Like they were hard.
Right. Your bars. Yes. I purchased after we booked our session, I went out and purchased a mixed pack and the truffliness of it is quite something. And what I love about it, what I secretly love about it is that my kids will eat it and they love it. My daughter has gone through almost all of it and she's in athletics, in sports. Yep. Both of my kids are athletic. And to have something portable, they eat their fruit, but the fruit has a lot of sugar. So I like to balance it out in their snack pack. So it's been a hit in the house. It's been, I can imagine what it was like in the room at the time. It's a bit of a novel product compared to what was happening in the bar category at that time.
The one of the big benefits of eating a lot of good fats with the fiber that we have is you feel full longer. You know, unfortunately, a lot of the energy bars are sugar because for years, you know, sugar equals energy. And as moms, we would even say, oh, but they need sugar, you know, for energy. And I remember when my son was little doing cross country and, you know, we would feed all the kids a bit of sugar before the race because you'd get an energy boost and
and then crash afterwards.
And crash, but that was okay. It was the sugar crash, and it was like, oh my goodness. Now, you know, now we kind of know what we know, and if you can have the right balance of fat and fibers, which we strike the right balance in the bars, you'll feel full much longer. And so that was one of the first things when we launched the bars. In the first 6 months, I went to every single consumer show, every single trade show, every single demo that I could go to. I did the first demos, the first 10 demos, the first 10 demos in Calgary, first 10 demos in Toronto. I did demos in Vancouver and Vancouver Island. But the feedback that kept coming back, even though we hadn't positioned it that way, was, oh my God, I eat half a bar and I feel full. So a lot of women were having the bars as snacks in the afternoon and then realizing, whoa, wait a minute, like this is fantastic, right? Like you're driving home and you're not starving. And the science, then we kind of went back and looked at the fat and fiber. And then we had some, you know, some experts like Nina and Thomas tell us they're designed to, you know, help you feel fuller longer.
I love it. Well, I am thinking about this. You know, one of the things that's special about your story is you had the trajectory that you had, and at the point in which you decided to start your own business here, you're saying it was at 50, you had accomplished a lot of success with the, you know, like you said, Frito-Lay, Procter & Gamble, ConAgra, Weight Watchers, etc. You came into this with a lot more ammunition while you hadn't started your own brand or your own company, technically. You came in with a lot more ammunition and success than a lot of other brand owners do when they are starting. Is there any like one thing? It might be difficult to say that there's one thing, but is there anything that you think that like the benefits of being in the industry so long and starting at 50, is there a net benefit at 50?
Yeah, well, there's three benefits. The first is I'm a brand builder, and all startups start with your positioning and then your product. Because the rest, you're just spending money to execute, to get distribution, to get placed, you know, to get the rest of the piece. But it starts with what is your brand positioning? What's the insight in the problem you're solving? And what does your brand stand for? And why should the consumer believe that you will actually deliver that benefit? So I had 25 years of doing that. So that was really key. I also had, you know, with executive kind of maturity of working in a range of companies, I've experienced a lot of, you know, the gray zone, the different styles, the different coaching styles, the different employees, the different cultures up and down, needing to kind of, you know, shift cultures, improve, needing to downsize, needing to upsize, you know, like I had just years of experience in a lot of multinationals where, you know, like there's a lot of things that just, you know, as you manage a business, in terms of the management, like how to, you know, how to
team building,
culture and team building and all that stuff. Many generations have passed, but a lot of the fundamentals have not changed in terms of kind of how you motivate your employees and how you kind of hire and retain and inspire. So that, you know, that executive experience helped a lot and helped kind of also have the wisdom of, you know, you have to manage risk and how to make good decisions and all that kind of stuff. And then I think the third thing is I had contacts, right? I had, even though I always felt bad in the last 30 years that I hadn't done a good job nurturing, you know, my network, I hadn't, back then you didn't have LinkedIn really.
Right.
And I was kind of like, oh, I'm not doing a good job of keeping in touch. But I did, 5 years ago have, a couple hundred people on LinkedIn and networks. And then it allowed me to kind of go back in the past. And now I have, 11,000 contacts.
Wow.
And, so I had a little bit of network. So I kind of had, like, there's benefits to going later. I didn't have a lot of money because,
right.
I was just a marketer, single mom, paying down the mortgage.
Yes.
But, and sometimes you can have, you can be financially better off later in life. I was okay, but not okay enough to, self-fund my launch. But there's benefits to going later.
I wonder as well, I've gone back just recently to get my MBA. And one of the things that we talk about, that is often a challenge in business in general is the concept of making some ethical decision making. And I would think that starting your own business, you can make some tricky decisions without context, as you said. And I wonder if there is validity behind that 2020, hindsight is 2020 vision, what I could see in the past, I could now take as a strength with me in the future, making some of these really complicated and tricky business decisions. Would you say that's accurate?
Oh, yeah, for sure. The with experience, you just kind of learn more and more. And as long as you kind of retain your learnings and able to kind of make sense of it, I'm a little bit of a walking case study. Like anyone who knows me knows I have about 200 business cases on my head, and I kind of, tap into this and tap into that. And I'm really kind of passionate about figuring that out. And then kind of taking the learnings. It's still not easy. I had worked on 2 hypergrowth brands before starting my own, which was a third. So 2 brands that had gone from 1 or 10 to 100 million annual revenue in, call it 18 to 24 months. So very rare, right? There's not a lot of people that have worked on hypergrowth. I had worked on 2 but driven by some CEOs that I really admire. And I was just very fortunate to have been in those environments. And then I launched my own, and lo and behold, we're also like a hypergrowth.
Right.
And hypergrowth is very unique. I've also worked on many brands that, took 10 years to get to 5 million or 8 million in sales. So it's a different world. So you kind of have to tap into all of these things and have a little bit of experience, and also know that things can go really sideways. A lot of smart people have launched a lot of great brands, and, innovation fail rate is 80% in CPG and 98% in startups. Startups, right? So, so you kind of have to know all that. We hit COVID, right? Like when we were doing our strategic plans and, had all our meetings with the boards and decided to launch in the US, we never had on our SWOT as, a threat or a weakness, the world will go into a shutdown.
Right.
And we're in the portable nutrition, right? So even though you have the best of teams, the best of advisors and board and executive teams, and the consumer demand, still things can still go sideways. So I think, just having the humility to kind of know that, a lot of things can go sideways, but a lot of things can go incredible too, as the successes we saw.
Yeah, humility is a big, I think a necessary component when in business in general, but in particular in startup. I really do believe that. Now, I want to talk, Suzie, you shared with me at one point, as we were kind of planning this time together, that you are on the autism spectrum. And I want to ask a question about that. But first, I want to ask, was this a diagnosis that you've lived with pretty much your whole life, or was this more of a newer learning for you?
Yeah. Well, the awareness of the diagnostic is more recent, the last 2.5 years.
Gotcha.
So in theory, I had it all my life, but I wasn't aware.
Right.
But now, looking back, my awkward teen and 20 years and my, quirkiness. And even in the last 5 years, I would, get feedback afterwards of like, like I'm a little bit different. Like it kind of all makes sense. But I kind of was going through life like not aware. It was a different time back then. And now I think there's a lot of high performing autistic executives.
I believe it.
Yeah. And the coach that I found, I think he's the top expert in Canada. He's been coaching high performance autistic executives for for nearly 30 years. And it's kind of really enlightening to be able to kind of see like, wow, a lot of things make sense now.
Yeah.
So that's been helpful to kind of put a pin in it. That being said, the things that don't change is like, okay, well, now I'm more aware of it, but I kind of still have these ways of thinking and framing things.
Yes. Yep.
And there's just more awareness in terms of what does it mean for me and for others.
Right. My sister-in-law has, she works at Microsoft, and she has my nephew is on the spectrum. And when she received the diagnosis and she was working with her HR team, I think it was at Microsoft at the time, and the HR team said, first of all, it's going to be okay, because without people on autism spectrum, companies like Microsoft would not exist. So she said, it's a blessing that we're finding it at the age that we're finding it out at. So I guess for me, the question that I want to ask you about this is, now that you know about this, do you have different structures that you put in place now in order to help others understand this quirkiness? I'm not exactly sure how to ask the question. I would just say, how do you work with this in a way that helps you and helps others and kind of amplifies this diagnosis?
That's a really good question. So I think that in the short term, I stepped away from the CEO day-to-day management of Love Good Fats. Okay. So my role is at the board, and I'm not, 60 hours a week managing executives, making decisions, go, meetings, like 9 hours a day. So my roles are quite different. I'm just doing consulting, brand building, innovation, and all that. So it's a different dynamic than when you're leading an executive team and employees. So my strengths that come, like I have this left and right brain that, engineering, left brain, electrical engineering from McGill, honors with this insight and creative that's kind of always been very unique. That's kind of allowed me to kind of see problems in a different way and be able to kind of find the insights on the brands and put all the strategies together to turn around the brands. So that's always kind of been there. And now what I'm doing more is just helping brands do that. So it's more, one-on-one with a founder or the head of marketing, et cetera. So different hats. When I have, or if I ever have large groups and that I'm managing again and going really fast, I have to kind of put steps in place that I think very differently. And the feedback that I've gotten for 30 years, but especially in the last 5 years, is I'm so fast, and I'm like 5 steps ahead, and I'm kind of in the vision up here and kind of for a lot of direct reports. It's like, whoa, wait a minute, like, where's she going? Break it down, slow it down, shape it. And when we were always on hyper speed too. So I kind of, needed to adjust that. Now what I'm doing now in terms of the consulting, it's not as much like I have like the tools to kind of break down the issue that I'm seeing with the brands and how to solve them in a kind of templated way. And I think the additional thing is when you're aware and you can share, hey, the way I think and process things and communicate is sometimes a little bit different. So if I kind of don't make sense on kind of where I'm going. Let's just, we'll slow it down and back it up because I'm on the spectrum. I think just that awareness allows everyone to feel better, right? Allows okay, I can understand where she's going. Because sometimes when you're 10 steps or 5 steps ahead,
yes,
not everyone sees it. And they're like, well, why are we doing that?
Yes.
Like, I don't get it. So I kind of have to go back little kind of steps and then it makes sense. But if you kind of share that you're self-aware about that, and then it's a win-win. And it's like, I've done Myers-Briggs in 5 or 6 of the companies I've been in. I've led it and I've participated and then led it and brought it. It's the same principle of being self-aware of what your preferences are, what your peers, managers, direct reports are, and then adapting your own approach so that you can have a better win-win in terms of understanding and being understood. It's kind of all the same principles.
Yeah. What was there some event that made you think I need to find out what's happening? I'm curious as to why the diagnosis now. I'm just thinking there might be people out there that are going, oh, I hadn't considered that I can go and diagnose myself now for something.
Well, I'm very, very fortunate that I have my adult daughter. Nikki is, over the top insightful. She's in personal growth, mental health. She's this generation that is 25 steps deeper and ahead of, what I was in my 20s when I was like, oh, I think I'll do some coaching and therapy and want to learn personal growth. Like now the whole world is incredibly, that generation tuned into mental health and being sensitive to kind of understanding different needs and being, also incredibly respectful of the diversity and understanding and compassionate. So she was like, Mommy, and she has her challenges because she had a learning disability or has one. But she was like, Mommy, go see her. We have the same doctor. I'm sure this is what you have. And she was doing all of this research. Yes, I'm very, very grateful to my Nikki. Yeah.
Oh, that's
and she was
unbelievable.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And so here we are, right? With I call it now, you've got another set of tools that you're aware of. I mean, you had them all along. You just didn't know they were there. And now you know that they're there. Yep. I'm thinking to myself, as you look back at your time with Love Good Fats, is there any one moment that you are particularly proud of? Is there something that happened, a group that you were able to impact, anybody on your team?
Well, there's hundreds and hundreds of proud moments. It was one high after another because when you do a startup, you're in 10 stores and then you're like, I wonder if we'll sell. And then you start selling in the 10 stores. Then you're in 100 stores. And by Christmas, we were in 150. And then, Loblaw, Sobeys, Walmart, everyone was calling. And then, and then you fill out the forms, you're listed, 6 months later, you're on the shelf. And then you're like, ooh, we're doing really well in natural, but I wonder if we'll do well in grocery because it's, usually
conventional.
It takes conventional and then mass. Oh, but okay, we're doing great in grocery channels that have natural products, but mass is many brands take 5-10 years to go into mass, then club, then e-com, then repeat for the US, right? So it was constantly, when I look back to those first 3 years is when will you know that we've made it? And my whole life was like, I'll know tomorrow, right? We don't today is just today. We're just kind of do the best, but we don't know if. And then then by year 3, you're selling 47 million in a year. And it's like, okay, we've arrived.
Yes.
But still there's 20-year-old brands that are, that fail, right? You can never, ever take a break from building your brand.
Yes. So good advice.
But there was a lot of like really, really incredible moments. I think my proudest moment is when I decided in my second year that I wanted to do a big splash for the LGBT community. We were still just a small company, right? Like $20-30 million and run rate. And then I was like, I want to go to every single large retailer. I'll start in Canada because the buyers knew me personally.
Yes.
And tell them, hey, Pride Month, I would love to have your support to have, the love is love, the pride flag, a display in the front of your store. So when, kids walk in, when the community walks in, you see a celebration of our community.
Yes.
And it's more than just the banks, who are fantastic, and LCBO, who had, celebrated Pride. Like, I want the grocery stores that we shop at to do the same. And there wasn't a lot, 2-3 years ago. And all the head offices said, love it, Suzie. So I put myself out there. Like, the call started with, hey, I'm lesbian. And, a lot of the buyers didn't know. And I was like, this is important to me.
Yeah.
And we were donating $1 per box to Rainbow Railroad. So the goal was to sell $1 million in June and donate $50,000 to save lives. Rainbow Railroad brings at-risk community and to Safe Harbor in Canada and the US, and that's the charity I picked, and we continue to sponsor to this day. And I think I really kind of did a big splash on LinkedIn for the last 2.5 years. And in a nice way, I'm like egging on the larger companies, like, hey, guys,
come on, guys.
Like, we should all be celebrating this. And, Kroger had my picture and our promotion in their windows across the US stores that we were in. All of the Canadian retailers supported us. Like, it's been fantastic. And I just felt, we didn't need to do that. It's not about selling more bars. It's about doing our little part to have our social message out there. And I've had hundreds and hundreds of parents contact me on LinkedIn and say, my kid, my adult kid or my teen kid has seen your message, is inspired by your story, and thank you. So,
that's amazing. I love it. Yeah. I always find that people's proudest moments are generally not financial. And I love that you shared that story. Thank you. Suzie, I'm loving our time together. And before we end, I wonder if you might be able to share, I always like it when people are able to share who they're watching in the marketplace. Is there any other women out there in the marketplace in CPG or otherwise that you want to elevate or just acknowledge for the work that they're doing right now?
Yeah, there's, I feel very fortunate. There's about 20 female founders just in Canada that I've networked with, and we're starting to kind of exchange and maybe start a formal group. I think that kind of the best thing is maybe we'll kind of put a link on your podcast of a whole bunch of them. There's so many new brands coming out and or brands that are a couple of years old with amazing female founders that I would love if, we could kind of promote a larger group versus just naming a few. I'll kind of send you names of 20 and we can put them on your
I love
podcast.
Yes.
I'm really trying. I have a little bit more time now, not a lot more, but wanting to reinvest in the female founder community. So that's kind of like a big effort of mine right now to see how much I can give back and find a kind of a formal way to promote all of us.
Yes.
So I'll connect with you and I'll kind of give you it. And then maybe, we can grow that list in terms of how to support other women.
Yes. Maybe there might be an opportunity to have them as guests on this podcast as well. Wow. Well, so what's next for you or for Love Good Fats? Anything that you can share?
Yeah, well, I'm still kind of, just a month out of kind of managing the day to day, or a couple months out of totally out of managing the day to day. So I'm kind of looking at a bunch of stuff right now. My big focus is just I want to help other startup brands, and that's my sweet spot.
Great.
And then, maybe I'll kind of launch something else. I don't know. We'll see if that kind of is in the cards.
Okay. Well, we have been talking with Suzie Yorke, founder and board member of Love Good Fats. Suzie, where can people learn more about you and your company?
The best place to contact me is on LinkedIn. I answer all my DMs. That's me. It's not a robot or a helper. So if you want to contact me, LinkedIn, Suzie Yorke, or just Google me and you'll quickly get to my LinkedIn. The company is lovegoodfats.com. Really easy to find, Amazon and our website. And we're in thousands and thousands of stores in North America. But find us online, Instagram and Pinterest and our website, and follow the journey.
Thank you, Suzie. Thank you so much for your time today. Excited to have you, and I look forward to watching what you do in the future.
Perfect.
Thank you. And
Thanks
to everyone else, yes, and to everyone else, thank you for your time. If you like this episode, please share it with a friend. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch you next time on the GoodHER Podcast.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you haven't already, be sure to click subscribe and share with your network. Until next time, be well and do GoodHER.